All right, everybody, welcome back to the Heath Barn. If you're hearing a little rain and thunder, there's just a nice little storm going on out here, but focus on me. Focus on me explaining this episode because it is a great episode. Episode 131. It's another two-parter. Part 1 comes out tonight. Part 2 Thursday night. But my guest was former Illini guard TJ Wheeler. And, man, he was a great guest. He came here and I'm sorry, I'm just kind of laughing thinking about some of the stuff we talked about. But this episode, we focus on the first part, I should say. He talks about where he grew up, things like that. He talks about his recruitment, what brought him to Illinois. He tells really, really good recruiting stories. And then we get into why everyone hates Iowa and Bruce Pearl in these parts. It goes back a long, long way, and it goes back to when he first came into college. So we get into that. He goes there, and it's awesome. And then I asked him about playing for Lou Henson. So he talks about Coach Henson, and he tells great Lou Henson stories that are very, very funny and very good. So that's just the first part. The second part comes out Thursday, and the second part's awesome too. But for now, just focus on this one. Part 1, episode 131, part 1 with former Illini guard TJ Wheeler. He was great. Thank you for coming on, TJ, and hit it. All right. TJ Wheeler, thank you very much for coming down.
Oh, thanks for the invite.
Yeah. If it was like back in the day and you didn't have all the Google Maps and stuff, is this place hard to find?
We would still be out there looking for you, and I would have done called you a dozen times. This was, this was not one you could just throw the address at and you find it on an old school map.
That was the idea. But do you ever think about that? Like back in the day, like how did we find anywhere to go or anything? I mean, once you have the technology, you can't imagine not having it. But back in the day, man, like the road maps, just looking at them while you're driving down the road and all that good stuff. But and our kids today don't even understand that. No,
that's the crazy part.
No, they have no idea. But before we get started here, I told you I'm a little down in the back. So I was like, well, that's a good opening question. So my back's jacked up, so I was thinking, how about you give me your maybe worst kind of injury while you were playing, and do you have anything now that still lingers in middle-aged hood, or whatever we want to call our ages? But
I would say, I'm trying to think what year. I think it was about my sophomore year.
High school or college?
College. Yeah. I went down at Minnesota. And the bad part it was like the first play of the second half.
Yeah.
We always ran a play where I set a back pick for Dion, so if my guy went and helped on the lob, then I would be open. I was open, shot it, landed on the guy's foot, and was down.
Right.
And that was that one lingered for a couple weeks. It was interesting trying to get back as quick as you needed to.
Right. But now, these days, though, nothing's still feeling pretty good and everything?
Well, I don't go to the doctor, so they don't tell me that I need change or anything like that. Probably now and it just driving as much as I do and stuff, I'm having major issues with my right hip.
Yeah.
But I'm the type of wheeler that I'll wait until it's too late.
Yes.
And then it'll probably be a hip replacement, but it'll hopefully years down the road still.
There you go. Good. This came out unscathed pretty much, but okay, well, for everybody out there, let's say they've never heard of TJ Wheeler. They don't know much about him or anything about him. Like maybe give a little bit of your background, where you grew up, where you played, all that good stuff, and then we'll get through everything else. So,
grew up in Buckner. It is a little town in between Benton and DuQuoin down in southern Illinois. And then that was the good part about when I went to college. I always told people I was from the suburbs.
Yeah.
So then you drove 2 miles into Christopher.
Yeah.
And then that's where I went to high school. So grew up, though. My mom and dad still live in the same house in Buckner that I grew up in let's just say 52 years ago.
Yeah.
And they still live there. My sister lives at the end of the block. Christopher High School. Like I said, it's right in between Benton and DuQuoin, about halfway probably for both.
Yes.
Graduated high school 1990.
There you go. And, okay, let's talk a little bit about, because I remember like Benton and Christopher, things like that. So what, Class A, obviously, but what was, like how many kids you have in your class? What was your enrollment like in the high school, stuff like that?
I think I probably graduated with about 75 kids.
Right.
I mean, it was nothing to nothing to call home about. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was 1A school. I mean, bleachers on both sides of our gym probably went 12 to 14 rows high. When it got real crowded, they put football bleachers on the stage.
Yeah.
So then it got loud. But that's how a lot of the schools were back then.
Right.
If you went to a 2A, they had a humongous gym and they could seat a couple thousand, where you were probably bringing in 1,200.
Right. Well, and kids don't understand that now. Well, with the 4-class system, like back in the day, it was just your A or double A, and 75. That's. Are they still 1A, or do you know, or do they move up to 2A? I bet they're still 1A if
they're still 1A. Football is probably a little different because they co-op with a little school right next to a Ziegler-Walton.
Yeah.
So they're called like CZR. So they're probably 2 or 3A, because that's the bad part. You might get 3 kids from Ziegler, but you got to add both enrollments together.
Right.
So that bump, yeah. But basketball, they're probably still 1A in basketball, because where we live in Tolono, Unity's 2A, so Christopher's 1A.
Well, let's talk a little bit about small town basketball, because obviously that's all I know too. So, did you like it? Were there drawbacks? How'd you feel about all that, like in high school?
I guess.
I mean, scoring 2,500 points.
You
probably liked it.
It didn't. I guess it didn't really faze me growing up or anything, because we played in some different holiday tournaments that, if you could beat a AA team, you thought you did something special. But we tried to play a lot of competition, and in the summertime, we always would travel and try to play bigger high schools here and there. But it never really sank in that I graduated with 75 kids, or just beat the team that graduated with 775.
Right.
It was just,
let's go play ball.
Let's play basketball and let's see what happens.
Right. I agree. Did you, what was the holiday tournament?
Mine was the El Dorado holiday tournament.
Gotcha.
I love that Christmas. It's still going on to this day. I think it's one of the best out there. And then we always opened up a Christopher Thanksgiving turkey tournament this year will be the 50th year that it will go on, and my dad started it 50 years ago.
That's awesome.
So that was back then, before now everybody has a Thanksgiving tournament. But back then, we were like the only tournament within 2 or 3 hours. So we always played on Monday night, play Wednesday night, play Saturday night for the title. Gym was packed every night because people just wanted to watch that was your first fix to get to watch a game.
Right.
So it was unbelievable. Now you go Monday, and hell, there's 199 games going on throughout the state.
That's true. Yes. Yeah. Did you, whenever you were playing, just growing up, when did you kind of gear toward basketball? Did you like other sports? Did you play other sports? Was basketball always the one for you, or what?
Basketball was probably always there. I played a lot of Little League baseball, and I started growing up there, so I started pitching and throwing, and I think probably going about my 7th, 8th grade year, I said, I don't want to play baseball no more. And my mom always told me that crushed my dad, because he thought my best chance was baseball, but I'm like, I don't want to play it no more. I'm done. I just want to play basketball. And then 7th, 8th grade year, I probably grew 3 or 4 inches, and then just little by little, I probably got to my senior year in high school was 6'3", 6'4", but then when you got to Illinois, I always told Rod, our trainer, I was 6'5", just made me look taller in the program.
Yeah.
Where someone would say, oh, look, he's 6'5".
Yeah,
but I really wasn't.
Right. So in high school, okay, you're playing for a smaller school, but you're dominating. I get over 2,500 career points, right? So now, you don't see a lot of small Class A guys going to big-time schools, Big Ten schools, things like that. So when you're going through When did you maybe start hearing from Illinois? Were there other schools that size looking into you as well, like other big schools, or was it more, how did all the kind of recruiting stuff, not the recruiting part, but when did you start hearing from Illinois, and were there other big schools besides them, I guess?
It was, I think, like sometimes my freshman year, you get, back then they were called those questionnaires.
Yeah.
So I got that, and then my sophomore year, I kind of had a breakout year. I remember getting named to the All-State team and things like that, and was the only sophomore on the All-State team. So then here comes more letters, more phone calls, and then my junior year, we were really good. We got to the sectional finals, and then here's all the schools flying in, watching you play, do this and do that. And I took my 5 visits. I visited Illinois last. I visited Minnesota, Michigan State, Stanford, and SIU.
Gotcha.
And I did SIU because it was 25 minutes.
Absolutely.
And just to help them out, I knew the coaches, and they wanted you to visit to really, hey, look, we're being mentioned with Minnesota, Michigan State.
Right.
So, back then, though, my problem was every visit I went on, I remember Minnesota was first. And I was like, man, hell, I want to go to Minnesota.
Right.
And then Michigan State was second. I'm like, well, I want to go to Michigan State. I mean, it was, you go to Michigan State and there's a Wheeler 44 jersey with a size 13 shoe, your name on the locker. I'm like, well, I'm ready.
Right.
It was, they get you every time. And the worst visit I probably had of the 5 was Illinois.
Really? Okay, so that jersey deal, is that what all of them kind of, get into that a little bit. What do they do to try to sweeten the
It was different. Like, I remember that was at Michigan State, and then when I was at Minnesota, they kind of had that little thing, and then they had a bunch of plays on a whiteboard with 44 coming off the pick. And then
that's crazy.
When I went to, up the, with that state or the floor being elevated, I remember going out there and hearing the radio guy talk about Big Ten Freshman Player of the Month this year is T.J. Wheeler. But the part that got me upset was it was against Illinois.
Right.
I'm like, don't,
so they were trying to.
I was one of those that don't tell me why I should come there. Don't tell me why I shouldn't go there.
Yeah.
And towards the end, a lot of them did that. And then I would tell you, I knew my junior year where I wanted to go, but 35 years ago, nobody committed early.
Right.
So I told them in the fall of my senior year, Coach Nagy made a surprise visit.
Yeah.
That I don't think he should have been there, but he made a surprise visit and just said, "What's going on?"
Right.
And I said, I'm 99.999% sure I want to be an Illini, but I'm taking my visits because I've busted my tail for 18 years.
Right.
I'm going to let them wine and dine me. Yeah. But I'm going to be an Illini.
Yeah.
And he said, no problem, see you, and he walked out. So that was, and like I said, I just wanted to see what they were like. I almost fell for it every time. And then the other crazy part was, like when I did my visits, me and Dad, you always tell people, hey, look at their rosters, see who's coming back. We never did that. Like at Minnesota, they played number 2 Nebraska in football. At Michigan State, they played number 3 Michigan. When I was at Stanford, they played number 1 Notre Dame. I made all my damn visits on watching college football because when you're that recruit, they put you right there.
Yeah.
So I watched some of the best teams in college football play that year.
Yeah, absolutely. You said you went to Stanford too? Is that
it's beautiful. Kid.
Yeah, I can imagine.
That was way too. That's too many BMWs, Mercedes, and there was not like a 4-wheel drive truck anywhere on campus. And I'm thinking, this might not be for me.
Right.
Beautiful though, beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame you one bit. I've worked so hard all these years. I'm gonna take every visit I can.
Oh, it was.
But it's also, I can see like a young kid. Well, I mean, there's millions of them that happens to now, but it's like hard saying no to people, because it's like when you're feeling wanted and things like that, I'm sure it's hard to turn people down. You want to say yes to all of them, just
And that was to be honest, that was the hardest part. Was I did all my 5 visits done. I knew where I wanted to commit. Did it on November 2nd. It was my mom's birthday.
Yeah.
But that November 1st, my dad made me call 7 or 8 college coaches that was still recruiting me besides the ones I took a visit on, and tell them I'm not coming, I'm going to Illinois.
Right.
And I said, you can't call and tell them? And he was like, you're doing it. You're going to. And
Well,
that was very, very hard because a couple of them, I wouldn't say got rude back with you, but just damn near hung the phone up on you.
Yeah. Well, nobody likes to be rejected, but still, it's good that your dad made you do that, though. That helps you grow up a little bit, when you're taking responsibility. Did you? Okay, so you're going to Illinois. What going from Class A basketball to that? How much of a shock was that right out of the gate? And then I'll get into the teams and all that kind of stuff. But just when you're first going there, starting to play, is it still just you're playing ball, or was it a shock kind of at the competition level?
It was the probably only thing that got me the first week or two, and I remember even talking to Coach Nagy about it, was the pace.
Yeah.
To get the rebound and go. I mean, and they went, and like my freshman year, we had Larry Smith back from the '89 team,
right,
the point guard. So I remember a couple times I'm like, oh, I got boo, and he went right by me.
Yeah. And
I'm like, okay, wait a second here. And then he did it again. I'm like, okay, the pace of this game is a little different. And especially going into my senior year, I went to the Nike camp. We did the A. So I played against, so I wasn't worried about that part. The part that probably caught me off guard, it took a little while, was the pace. And it was 5 times quicker than what I really thought it would be.
Right. Well, you're coming right off the heels of the Flying Illini there, too, where they're just going. But I guess that's my next question, too. What was that like? Because you were coming in right as they were leaving. So you got a fan base who's just got done seeing all that, and you're kind of with that new group getting ushered in there. So what, did you feel any kind of extra pressure or because Larry Smith was the only one, right, left over from that when you got there?
Yeah. Yep. You really didn't, and of course everybody can say Illinois basketball's got the best fans, blah, blah. I truly, even if I didn't play there, there's just they're fanatics. They love Illinois basketball. Even when we go back to games here and there, a dozen or so people are going to say, they want to say hi to you and talk to you, because they're basketball fans.
Right.
And it's special. And I think in 2005, when they made that crazy run, and I went with a couple buddies to St. Louis, and we're around the Final Four at that Al Raboski place where everybody's at.
Oh, yeah.
I think that was probably the first time I realized how special it was to be an Illini, because everybody stopped you and asked how you were doing. We missed your jump shot. We missed watching you play, man. And that was probably the first time I've been around a huge group like that I'm thinking, this is different. This is very special,
right, to
be a Fighting Illini. And it was even more special that I grew up in the state of Illinois.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was when they were bringing it. I mean, those guys, they were recruiting the crap out of Illinois too, and they're trying to have the majority of the roster from the state, So now when you were you come in as a freshman. Now, I mean, we're just a podcast, so you can kind of explain what you think. Let's say there's a kid here, and they're like, I don't understand all this stuff in the past about Iowa and all this drama. Okay, because I mean, honestly, if you look it up, your freshman year, you guys were banned from postseason.
Probation, yeah.
So if you could maybe explain it however you want, but just maybe to somebody that's not that's kind of ignorant of whatever happened.
I think, to make the long story short,
yes,
Iowa and Bruce Pearl. And let's just say Bruce Pearl.
And people know him. And
the biggest snake in college basketball. Some has a coaching job right now. Mm-hmm. So I hate Auburn's number 1. I hate Iowa number 2. If I had to rank basketball programs,
you'd put Auburn ahead of them just because he's coaching.
Just because he's the head coach.
Now, but if he went to another school next year, that'd be your number 1.
Yeah. Okay. And then I would go Iowa 2, then Auburn probably 3, and then Tennessee 4 because he was at Tennessee.
Yes.
I just keep going where he was at.
Right.
But it came down to, he said that Illinois gave Deion $50,000 and a blazer.
Yeah.
And I think that was their main focus, was That's why Dion committed to Illinois. So it was my senior year. The whole NCAA investigation went on.
Yeah.
And then even went on a little bit into my freshman year at college, only for them to come up after they did all this investigation. And even had LaFonso Ellis from East St. Louis saying that we gave him money, about all kinds of stuff, to come up with some Illinois mishandled some tickets. So lack of institutional control, or whatever they wanted to call it, they banned us for a year from the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
And the bad part was we had got second or third in the Big Ten that year, so we were automatically going to go to the tournament.
Yeah.
And then they didn't announce it, if I remember correctly, they didn't announce it until after Juwan Howard took his visit to Illinois.
Yeah.
And they announced it, or he committed, and then they announced it, because he always said if they would announce it before, maybe he was going to come to Illinois. But he didn't want to wait to see what was going to happen, so he committed to Michigan.
Right. Well, and what happened there with all them? It's like, come on. But
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
Jesus. But where exactly does Bruce Pearl come up? Besides just saying this, like how
He was the main recruiter for Iowa to get Dion to come to Iowa. Like for me at Illinois was Coach Nagy.
Yeah.
A lot of the Chicago guys, it was Coach Collins.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So for Iowa, Bruce Pearl was their man to get Dion. And the bad part was that sometimes, back then them coaches just talk and talk and talk. And I've never asked Dion, to be honest, if he got it or didn't. But sometimes you probably just say stuff to shut him up.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But I trust me, from the car he picked me up our freshman year and drove me around, he didn't get $3 to come to Illinois.
Yeah.
I told him after practice, he said, hey, let's go. I'll give you a ride home. I said, no, I'll walk back to the dorm. No, it's raining. I said, I'll walk in the rain. I'm good.
Yeah. See, but back then though too, like, okay, so was it just his word? Because you got an assistant coach just running their mouth, and like anybody could do that. So he ran his mouth enough to where it led into an investigation, or was there like a phone, like a wiretap, or was there some kind of BS?
I think
is that all just BS that gets?
I think that was a lot of BS that just
yeah.
got brought on there. I mean, you got to think about 30 what? That was probably in 88, 89.
Right.
I mean, he'd have to have one of them little old school tape recorders and hit tape to buy put it by the phone at the bottom and listen. Hell, I don't know how he would have taped it.
Right.
But there was always that. Well, I got him on tape saying it, blah, blah.
Yeah. Yeah, so anyway, for people that didn't know, that's
Bruce Pearl. That's why everybody at University associated with Illinois basketball hates Bruce Pearl.
Right. And that's why the Iowa stuff goes back so far too. That's where he was. But all right, well, let's get into so that freshman year, you guys had a really good year, but postseason ban. Now you played in the tournament. You made it twice, right?
Last two, yeah.
Your junior, senior year. Let's talk about talk a little bit about some of the other guys you played with, and you still stay in touch with them and things like that.
The amazing part is, and you brought it up earlier, the 89 guys.
Yeah.
That, they're going out as I'm coming in. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like, I lived with them for 3 or 4 years. But me and my wife was just in Florida for a week, and we got with Nick a couple different times. Met him at a cigar bar, but that's just how Nick is.
Right.
I talked to Marcus Liberty once every couple months. He's out in Florida. Every time Steve's in town's got a couple days, I see Steve. He'll tailgate with us in the fall. Like I said, Larry Smith kind of took me under his wing my freshman year, and really, I don't want to say he taught me the right way to play, but he taught me the right way to play Lou Henson's system.
Right.
And he goes, you want to play that, you're going to listen. And he really helped me out. I will boo a lot, and he stops by. Our kids are close enough to him. JT calls him Uncle Boo, that they just love him to death. But I owe a lot because he taught me how to play Coach Henson's system.
That's awesome. That was going to be my next thing. Explain another thing for the younger kids, like talk about Coach Henson and what was it like playing for Lou Henson?
It was
because I know
it was
you get a variance of
you have apples to oranges. You got Coach Henson, that all him yelling at you was him pointing his finger and saying, "Hey," that was him getting on you, and then trying to say this and then walk away. But then that's when Coach Nagy and Coach Collins come to the table.
Right.
So you're thinking, oh, Coach did this. Hey, TJ, you did that wrong. And you're thinking, that ain't bad. And I turn and there's Coach Nagy in my face. I'm thinking, this is going to get ugly.
Right.
And then that's when he calls you every name in the book. And, and then you go on with the next play. But, Coach Henson, 24/7, all he wanted to talk about was basketball.
Yeah.
He didn't worry about all the assistants, worried about you, how you were doing in school. That if you stopped by the office, Coach would get out his tablet and draw a free throw line with the top of the key on it and say, TJ, if you were going to start at the 2 guard today, who would be your other 4 players?
Oh, really?
That's what he would ask you.
Yeah.
And the older I got, I think I drove Coach crazy because going into my senior year, if I stopped in there, and he'd say, TJ, if you're going to start over here, who would be your other 4? And I'd say, well, who in the hell gives a shit if I'm starting, Coach? We're good.
Yeah.
And then he would tear that piece of paper off and then draw it again and say, and he would, instead of putting my name here, he would put over here, TJ, if you were going to start today, who would be your other 4?
Yeah.
I said, who cares? I'm starting. We're good. And he would rip it off and throw it away. And he would just look at me and then not say nothing. And then I would just get up and leave.
Yeah.
But as I got older, I'm thinking, you got to play me so I can, I'm starting, let's roll.
Yeah.
And then young, you get nervous and you're like, oh, okay, well, Dion played good. And, you would really try to do it. Now I got older, I'm like, it don't matter, I'm starting, we're good.
Yeah. Was that just mind games with him, or just kind of testing you to see how you'd respond?
He always, that was Coach's thing. I mean, if I stopped in his office 50 times, 48 times, he asked me, if we were playing tonight, who was starting with me?
Really?
That was just, and he drew that top of the key with the free throw line.
Right.
And he had the old school copy paper that was in those metal tablets where you could, as a kid, you would pop that metal piece that hit the board and you heard it make noise. That's what our stuff was.
Right.
And he had a couple pins in his jacket.
Yeah.
And if we would get into a timeout, he would set in front of us. He would draw that first, and if he wasn't for sure, he'd rip it. Then he would draw it again. Then he'd rip it. Then he would draw it again.
Then they blow the horn.
Then then he would start talking about it. But there's no telling how many pieces of paper went underneath there, and all it had was the top of the key and free throw line.
Well, rest in peace, Coach Henson.
Yes.
Obviously. In-game strategy, though, did you guys just have your sets and blah, 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 and that was it, and he just call it, or did he ever, let's say there's 3 seconds to go and you got to draw something up. Would he draw something up, or would you already have something in that
a little bit of both. Sometimes he would draw it up. Sometimes he would run 2 or, things of that nature. He always, the offensive part, we probably had, I'm going to tell you, 4 set plays.
Yeah.
And that was it. The rest was motion. Out of bounds, 2 plays. The thing that you really had to pay attention on now, every team we played, we guarded a different way.
Yeah.
We never just said, just go guard them, and you're guarding, I'm going to guard you,
Right.
Some games, the 3 guards switched.
Yeah.
Some games, the 3 big, for me and Dion and Shelley switched. Sometimes we would play straight up. We play straight up, then this team we forced to the middle. This team we forced to the base. So you really had to, if we played on Wednesday, Monday, and Tuesday, we did a lot of walkthroughs on what Michigan State was going to run, because I had to guard Sean Respert.
Yeah.
So Michigan State had 25 plays. 24 went to Sean Respert. So,
Yeah.
I had to really, and
that's another name for the pass. That's a good name.
That's a great name.
He was a hell of a scorer.
But back then, that was, you take 6 VHS tapes home.
Yep.
And I had to put them in a VHS player. And to watch Michigan State, and sometimes here's a Sean Respert highlight tape. Watch what Sean did.
Right. Yeah. You got a story about him that maybe nobody knows, about Lou?
I just told
Rich. It's going to be clean for the most part, because he never swore or anything.
No,
right?
he never did. I just told Rich McBride this, and then a couple of days later, I know he asked Tommy Michael if it was true. Coach had a horrible, horrible habit of when we started scrimmaging, he would kind of stand in between the top of the key and half court, like in the middle. But when we scrimmaged, if you got a defensive stop, steal, or a rebound, you went. And we only played the 12. That was it. Well, my senior year, I would say I was with the second group when we scrimmaged because Kewan Garris was a freshman and he was our only point guard. So that summer going into our senior year, me and Steve Bartle, like he showed me how you watch tape, how Steve backed people down. I had to back people down because you weren't going to get around my big old caboose, my caboose. So it was like, and then it would be like me, Rob Bennett, Tom Michael, Chris. They would put 5 of us on that second team that knew what was going on against 2 freshmen.
Yeah.
Well, we got a steal, and I was guarding Kewan on top. We just got a steal, and I turned and went. And all I know is he's standing there, and I go through him. So he slides and ends up on the other side of half court.
Yeah.
I get the ball, make it, and I know that I've caught him good, so I run off to the sidelines. And I try to hide with the walk-ons.
Yeah.
They got an orange shirt on. Mine was orange, so I'm over there. And he gets up after he moves his hair back.
To where it's supposed to be.
And he's got that orange windbreaker on. He wore the same orange windbreaker with a white shirt, orange pants, blue Converse shoes every day. I mean, hopefully he had 18 of each. But and once he regrouped, it didn't take him long to find me. And here went that finger. Hey, you got to stop, look before you run. And then what got me was, and because you did, he said, 2 points away. Well, he knew that would get me because I come blaring out, what do you mean? And started arguing. I'm like, you got to get out of the middle of the floor.
No kidding.
2 points away. Get him, and then go sit down. He made me go. But then none of the other coaches come and said nothing because their faces beat red. They're wanting to laugh.
Right.
Well, and I'm over there just fuming because we were about to, it was like going to be 10-4. Well, he just kept taking points. And then I'm over there with my mouth talking. And then the next morning, I want to say we're about to go on an away game, but it had to be close when we were on a charter bus. And you always had to walk down the tunnel because back then you got 1 pair of shoes. Now you walk in the Illinois basketball locker room, Terrence Shannon Jr.'s got 29 pairs.
Right. Exactly.
We have 1 pair.
Yeah.
So I have to go to my locker, get my 1 pair out, go find my 44 bag, put my bag in there. So I'm about to put my bag in there, and I'll never forget Rod Cardinal grabbing me saying, no need to take your bag. And I'm like, Rod, I actually went to class this morning. Call the professor. You guys can't bust me that fast.
Right.
Rod's like, no. Coach came down for treatment 3 different times today. And I go, what? He goes, once was his hip, once was his back. And I'm like, from yesterday? He said, yeah, you ain't playing. So, he was joking, but then I get on the bus, the first person I see is Coach Henson.
Yeah.
And then I put my head down, and then I feel someone just grab my hand, and it was Mary Henson.
Yeah.
And she just said, TJ, did you run over Lou yesterday? I'm like, okay, I'd rather you not play me than have Miss Henson tell me.
He was on the floor.
Did you run over? And then you go a couple aisles farther, and there's like Lauren Tate. Hey, her Lou took a charge on you yesterday. And I'm and I finally got back to the back, and I'm thinking to myself, hell, I'm not playing tomorrow night. They've all busted me out. I got to play, but I'd rather have, Mary grabbed me. Did you? And I'm like, nah, you just got me feeling horrible. For you to, I can take Lauren Tate and some of them, but when Mary said, I'm like, well, that right, you made me feel terrible now.
Yeah, that's a really good story. The thing is, though, shouldn't he just be like, it's my bad, I should be on the floor?
No, it was my fault. He come and found me. And when I say I got him good because, it's a steal, and I turned and I saw orange. I'm like, hell, I ran through him like a good linebacker. I ran through my tackle, and I kept going. I got the ball and went down and scored. But I was smart enough to go to the sideline thinking I could blend in.
Yeah.
He come with that finger. Hey, there's TJ. I'm like, here we go.
Yeah. Oh, man.
And blame it on me because I didn't stop, turn, and look before I ran. All I did was run.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you got it's I got him good.
Man, if it was that was today, that would have been on. That would have
went viral everywhere.
Yeah.
I could have sent it in and won money from it.
Yeah. All right, we're going to stop this one right there. Remember, part 2 coming up Thursday night. We get in all kinds of stuff. He talks about guarding certain players. He talks about favorite gyms, least favorite gyms. We get into NIL and transfer portal and all that stuff, and we go and go and go. And he and I have a player in common that we both dislike. And we never say his name, but Thursday night when you listen, you're going to know who we're talking about. And I just felt like we were really, really on the same page with that. So you'll just have to tune in Thursday night to listen to that. But again, thank you for listening to Welcome to Heath Barn, and that's that.